has this is your campaign chair. This is the national head of the UJC. So it's a very big deal. If you had no title, it would be a big deal because I revere this guy. But just because I am in this position of privilege, I have to come and introduce something. Well, welcome to my city. First of all, if you're not from Los Angeles, and many of your cities on radio, and you don't know, I don't know what you're building, but I have so much to tell you about. You know, I was speaking at the General Assembly for 30 years, actually. Believe it or not. I can't believe it. I started when I was 6. And I've never spoken to this particular subject, which has become more and more important to me as I get older. I'm going to do something that has probably not been done by a speaker, certainly at a GA or almost anywhere. And I hope this will be in some way life-changing for you. It is also completely apolitical. There's no, as much as I'm identified with issues concerning politics and social policy, this has no agenda politically, although there is an upshot probably in politics, but that's not my point. I want to talk to you about the question of the authority of the Torah. And I come from a good place because normally the position that I am about to take would be taken by an Orthodox Jew, but I'm not an Orthodox Jew. I'm a Torah-believing religious non-Orthodox Jew. If you want to know what that means, invite me. It's something I have worked on in my life, actually. I'd like to share with you a few preambular preliminary comments on this matter. Number one, I came to the realization, and this is fancy in print, I wrote it in the LA Times last year, so you can check the LA Times website. We think that a major predictor of people's values will be whether or not they believe in God. That is not the case. The vast majority of Americans believe in God, and they are divided, liberal and conservative, virtually 50-50. So clearly, belief in God has almost no impact on one's values. You can believe in God and be on the left. You can believe in God and be on the right. You can believe in God with some, or at least use the term and blow people up. You could believe in God and be Mother Teresa. Belief in God tells me virtually nothing about a human being's values, let alone behavior. But now, confining ourselves to Jews and Christians and America only, this is not a part of what I'm about to say, or not necessarily apply outside of what we call the Judeo-Christian world, a term that I believe is consistent. There is no Judeo-Christian theology, but there are Judeo-Christian values. I just want to make clear why I use this term. And that is this: the division, if you want to understand and predict people's political, social values and positions, it is not whether or not they believe in God, but whether or not they believe a text is divine. This is the great dividing line. It is not the only dividing line, it is the biggest. If you believe that all Holy Scripture is man-made, and I'm using man as a generic for human, if you believe it is all man-made, you are far more likely to have liberal views, and if you believe that there is a divine authority, you are more likely to have conservative values. That is the dividing line, not whether you believe in God. Belief in God is essentially meaningless. Everybody tells pollsters they believe in God. It doesn't mean a thing. This means a lot, and no one that I know of has pointed to this as the great division. Do you believe that a text is divinely authored? Now, does that mean God wrote it down with his fingers? No. I don't care what it means. I am not entering the realm of how did God write the Torah. But if you regard the Torah as ultimately, even if 72 committees ultimately wrote it, if you regard it as ultimately divine, you will have very different views in most cases than those who believe it is a man-made document. For very obvious reasons, among them being, if you believe that it is man-made, what men wrote, men and women can change. In addition, if you believe God is the ultimate authority, then you have to figure out how to work this through in your life. Example, I was debating Professor Alan Dershowitz at the 92nd Street Y a number of years ago on Jewish matters. In the middle of the debate, I looked up to the very large, whatever they take there, 1,000 or so people, it was on closed camera, the Jewish community centers around North America, and I looked at the people and I said, folks, I can tell you the great difference between Alan Dershowitz and me in a sentence. When Alan Dershowitz disagrees with the Torah, he thinks he is right and the Torah is wrong. When I disagree with the Torah, I think the Torah is right and I am wrong. And he said, ladies and gentlemen, for the first time this evening, Dennis Prager and I agree. That is very significant. He agreed to that difference. When he differs with the Torah, he's right. And I'm not calling him arrogant. I would do the same thing if I thought it was man-made. The only reason that I have to rethink my positions when the Torah has position X is because I don't think it's man-written. So it has very huge consequences. The single greatest is on the single most emotional subject of the day, homosexuality, and I will address that. Because that's the elephant in the room, and it needs to be, its presence needs to be acknowledged. But that is how important this question is. So before I even make any case, it's like when I talk about the case for God's existence, I first spend 10 minutes speaking on why it's important whether or not people believe God. I want you to understand how important the question is, what authority does the Torah have? It makes all the difference in the world in how one leads one's life. You might ask, by the way, because another elephant in the room, at least for some of you, would be, well, if you believe that, why aren't you Orthodox? That would apply to the status of rabbinic law, which I believe must be changed, not can be changed, must be changed. And while the Orthodox will often acknowledge that, well, of course, rabbinic law can, they don't, except that they make it stricter. As a general rule, they won't be calling the sheep a Kumro the weak club. It's only the Orthodox people who up there. I was talking about So now we come to the question of what is the case that, especially in non-Orthodox Jews, that anybody would make, given the fact that there are very difficult parts of the Torah. What case could be made that this is divine, as opposed to just another man-made document, or as you will often read in Reform and Conservative surveys, the Jewish people's encounter with God, or the Jewish people's autobiography, or why take the Torah seriously? It's my story. So Greeks will take Homer seriously, and Italians will take, some great Italian writers seriously. Machiavelli was better. But so on. I am not ethnic in that way. The fact that Jews would have written it is of no interest to me other than interesting ethnic facts. Either it was guide my life or at home. The fact that Jews wrote it and not Greeks is interesting, but frankly insignificant to me. If God's behind it, then it is significant to me. Point number 2. Now that I have made the case for why it is so significant, but I'm speaking quickly due to time limitations. The next question arises is, what sort of case can you make? Before I get to what was advertised in the synopsis of this talk, the difficult analyses or concepts in the Torah, how it's going to deal with them, let me make one overall case for why I don't believe it is an all-man-made document. And that is this, and I find this, obviously I find it persuasive, or I keep speaking on some of the subject, but I find this argument very